and Elisa stormed the platform. Specie Tovarici. Ever since the Mail identified me as a KGB agent, I've reverted to my mother tongue. On Saturday, Tom Watson and Jeremy were at an international sports event, and Tom texted me and said, "We've had it. If the Czechs win and we have to stand for the Czechoslovakian national anthem." I want to concentrate on one thing. The government, Philip Hammond, has downgraded the spring statement that will be with us next week. It's no longer a fiscal event, it's not a budgetary event or anything like that. But what he's done is he'll announce a number of Office of Budget Responsibility reports, he'll talk about some longer term consultations, and he'll give a semi-glowing report about the state of the economy as it now is. We need your help in this next week or so, because we're trying to pressurise. I don't know if this is working. We're trying to pressurise. Can you hear me at the back? Yes. I said that at a meeting a short while ago, and someone shouted out, unfortunately, yes. We're trying to put pressure on the government around this spring statement, and the reason for that is we know it's not planned as a budgetary event or a fiscal event, but we think that we're in a situation in many of our communities where we're in crisis. And it's not me saying that, it's Labour councillors around the country, and it's not Labour councillors just saying that, it's Conservative leaders of local authorities around the country. And what's happened after 8 years of austerity now, we have large numbers of local councils who literally now are going, well I suppose the expression is bankrupt. Northamptonshire Conservative Council at one point in time was basically saying they couldn't make a budget. Surrey Council, Philip Hammond's own council, was in a £100 million deficit situation, and actually made a plea to, they were critical of their own local MP, Philip Hammond, saying actually you can't fill while Rome burns. We've got a financial crisis facing us. And that has a number of consequences for the delivery of public services, but actually also has a number of consequences for the local community as well, and local businesses too. What's happening now in a whole range of public services, local councils are saying we can't fulfil our statutory, our legal duties. And it is horrendous. We've got 1 million people out there who are elderly vulnerable, who are not getting the care that they need because of the cutbacks over the last 8 years. 1 million. We have now a crisis in children's services, not depicted by me, but the children's charities saying that we have a crisis that could easily tip into a catastrophe. We've had more children being brought into care since the 1980s, the highest level since the 1980s, because of cutbacks by local authorities in early interventions, 40% cutback in the grant that local government is given by central government for vulnerable children. And it just goes on and on and on. And what that means now is local authorities themselves are faced with putting up council taxes, yes, as much as they can, drawing upon their reserves, destabilising their budgets. You know what it's like when you pull all your reserves in and you've got limited flexibility for the future, and at the same time are not delivering the services. And also, to be frank, with the number of privatisations that have gone on to, we're now in a situation where local government workers have had a 21% wage cut since the austerity started in 2010. We're trying to put pressure on Philip Hammond to say, look, we need some assistance. We can't wait until the November budget. So we're asking people in all our communities now to start contacting their local MPs and saying, you've got to turn this spring statement into a fiscal event. You've got to force this government to act, because we cannot go on like this. The crisis in homelessness, you've seen what, in London, homelessness has doubled. We had someone die within a few steps of the door of Westminster Palace. That's as a result of the austerity cuts that have gone on. And our Labour councillors have become the human shields for what the Tory government is doing centrally, because the cuts have been passed on to Labour councillors to implement. And they're in, I've talked about moral dilemmas. I really feel for them, because they've never stood for election, never thought they'd be in a situation where they're having to implement this scale of cuts. And it's having its effect on local communities as well. Taking that level of spending power out of local communities is having its effect on all of the small businesses within those particular areas. And it's a disgrace. Levels of human suffering, cutting our noses off to spite our face, short-term cuts that have long-term costs, like children coming to care on that scale, and having a direct impact upon the quality of life of all our communities. So we're asking people, in whatever guise they are in their local community, whether they're small businesses, whether they're just members of the local population or whatever, to start contacting their local MPs, now Labour and Conservative, and just say, look, this is what we need you to do. We need not statements next week, we need some action. We need action. And that action is about making sure more resources are put into local communities. And I tell you what was galling. Annalise said we couldn't get to the Christmas do, and that was annoying enough, to be honest, to be trapped in the chamber. But what they were doing also, they were pushing through a finance bill. They were pushing through a finance bill where we're saying the most vulnerable children in our society are at risk. Don't listen to us, listen to your directors of social services. And at the same time, they were cutting the bankers' levy. Now, we introduced it, if you remember, we lobbied and we supported the bankers' levy after the crisis because that was a way in which the big bank could pay something back for having been bailed out. What the Tories did in the finance bill, which is now an act, they cut the bankers' levy. So that was basically demonstrated our different moralities, didn't it, really? About what we stand for and what interests they seek to protect. I thought it was an absolute disgrace. So where we are now is to lobby them for this spring statement. We want to try and force upon them action if we can. The interesting thing about what's happening in Parliament today at the moment, if you talk to any individual MP, and I've been here 20 years now, and you get institutionalised after a bit, but we've never seen anything like this. Every night is a one-line or two-line whip. There's no business going through. The government's in a state of absolute paralysis because they can't agree amongst themselves basically they just can't agree amongst themselves. And so we don't know from one day to another which coalition of cabinet is actually dominant from one time to another, whether it's Theresa May or Philip Hammond's faction or, God help us, Boris Johnson and Liam Fox. Think of that. Boris Johnson and Liam Fox, their faction. We do not know which faction's in control. At the same time, Theresa May does not know what she can get through Parliament because she can't trust their own backbenchers. And then above all this, the DUP has a veto on every policy. So at the moment, there's lots of announcements of things, policies to happen, but no legislation going through. We've dealt in the Commons with the Brexit bill, that's now gone off to House of Lords, so literally we're stagnating here. That isn't good for Parliament, but certainly not good for the country overall as well. But there could be one action next week. There could be turning that spring statement into a fiscal action, which could put some more money into local government, allow us to start retrieving some of the damage that have been made in our public services, actually start addressing the issues of the impact of the pay cap of local government workers, putting more money back into local economies, and that will impact upon the whole community, but also, to be frank, it will impact upon you as well in terms of small businesses. More money in the economy means more business for yourselves. So we're desperate. Anything you can do to assist us in this over this next week, raising it in your communities, raising it with the local MP, putting as much pressure on we possibly can, please do. Finally, look, we're in a situation now where we don't know where this government's going to go. It's a government in office, not in power. Not in power. They're clinging on for as long as they possibly can. It could be short-term or long-term. So we're planning for government in the short-term and long-term. So all the policies that you saw in the manifesto, we're now translating into implementation plans, even getting draft legislation on the shelf. But we want your ideas. That manifesto was for the last election, and you influenced it. The SME group influenced it dramatically. That programme that was put forward in the manifesto itself came from your ideas. But what we're doing now is taking that manifesto, moving it on into an implementation plan, but we need more ideas all the time. So through the Labour for SME, the fantastic work you do in terms of raising support for us, raising funds for us, we also want you to go back into the policy making mode now and keep us informed of those policies that we need to advance, where maybe not included in the last manifesto, new policies that we need to bring forward, or the way in which we take those policies that were in the manifesto and how we implement them more effectively. Because we need to be ready for when this government falls. It will fall. It will fall, and we will win the next election whenever it comes. But we'll win it on the strength of the support that we've got, but also on the strength of the ideas that you're giving us that reflect the real world out there the businesses facing. So thanks for your support. This coming period we need that much more, both in terms of your intellectual support and obviously your campaigning support. So well done.